Are we live already? Are we streaming?
Yes.
Hi. We'll let just everybody come in. We still have people in the waiting room. Come in. We still have people in the waiting room.
Sister, you can mute your YouTube.
Okay, a few more people to joining and then we'll start right on time. Thank you for joining this morning or afternoon or evening. It depends where you are in the world. If you are in Europe, you will see this recording later and it will be there as a recording in the platform. And you can hear, I'm in Chennai, you have the nice noise of the auto rickshaw on the street. I'm Dr. Veronique Nicolai, and I'm very happy to have you all this morning on this Yoga for Unity first session with Dr. Elizabeth Denley, and to have so many of you who have joined live to be part of this workshop. I will invite you to switch on your camera so that there is a sense of group and community, as that's the point of being live on YouTube. So the sessions that you have signed up for with Elizabeth Denley are practical tips from the yoga, the wisdom of yoga, and how the philosophy behind some of the principles are extremely practical. I have known Elizabeth for many, many years, and I'm really appreciative that she is taking the time every week to guide us through workshop. She is not only a scientist, so has this mind of being part of an experiment and looking at the result, but she's also deeply passionate about spirituality. And she's been guiding a lot of people, young and old. And I think her experience in coaching will be very beneficial for all of us. So, Elizabeth, thank you for being here. And I leave the screen to you. And I hope you all enjoy. You can just, take a cup of coffee, have a good share, relax. Maybe a notepad and a pen if you want to have a few notes. And enjoy the session.
Thank you, Veronique. And hi, everybody. I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm just back from India from the Global Spirituality Mahotsav to Australia. So I don't know what time it is where I am, but I don't think that will matter for this session. I think this session is anyway beyond time and space, and so I'm probably in a very good place to do it. So welcome. And we'll start. I'll just share my screen first so that you can see what we're going to talk about. Let me know when you can see. Can everybody see?
Yep, all good.
So I know many of you. For those of you who are new to this, we're going to talk about these 10 principles of heartful living. All the images, the illustrations in this come from Heartfulness magazine, from our trusty designers and illustrators who do such a fabulous job trying to bring alive these concepts. And in particular, the one who worked on this series in the magazine is a lovely designer called Jasmi Madgal from Hyderabad. So please appreciate her beautiful drawings because they always inspire me. So we're going to start the sessions with an introduction about what these 10 principles of heartful living are and where they come from. But before we do that, I'd like us all to just try and center ourselves in our being so that we're most receptive, most open to receiving this wisdom, which doesn't come from me, it comes from the tradition I follow, which is the Heartfulness tradition. So if you can just put pen, paper, phones, everything down, sit comfortably, close your eyes, and just look inward. Start by looking inward, relaxing your body. Imagine going to the center of your being. And the easiest way to do that is through the heart. Just dive into the center of your being. Just connect there for a moment. Just rest there. Feel the stillness and feel the light and love emanating from the center of your being. And see if you can allow that to spread out from your center to every cell, every atom in your whole being and beyond, to your subtle body, which goes beyond your physical body, and then out into the universe. So allow this center, the love and light in your center, to be like a fragrance emanating out from within you. Just rest in that beautiful state for a few moments and enjoy. And feel it connecting with all the other hearts in this webinar. When you're ready, it's time to open your eyes, but try to hold this state during the whole time we're together. Okay, so maybe you want to share in the chat how that feels when you do that. What changes in you? Anyone who feels can write in the chat. Calmer? Calm and settled? Peaceful, really connected? So this is something you can do anytime, any day to create that same peaceful, relaxed, connected state. You don't need to wait till the next webinar to do it. It's a very practical tool that we call centering in Heartfulness. Okay, let's move on. These 10 principles, where do they come from? So they have a very special origin. And this came literally 75 years ago. This special book. So 75 years ago, a holy man in a remote town in Uttar Pradesh in the north of India, he decided to put into words the direct vibrations he received through perception, direct perception in a superconscious state. And he put these into a book, which was called Commentary on the 10 Maxims of Sajmarg back then. So these 10 principles are there to transform us, to allow us to reach the highest levels of consciousness we can. And generally, he distilled the essence of the ancient practices of yoga. And he modified them for this present era of humanity. He simplified, he took the essence, which was backed by a very special, energy is a wrong word, but energy is the only word we can use, very special energy called pranahuti or transmission. So this holy man was named Ramchandra, and most of us know him as Babaji. Some of you on this call knew him in person. Very special being. And he was the man that founded Sri Ramchandra Mission, the Sajmarg practices, which we now know today as the Heartfulness practices and the Heartfulness movement. So that is the origin of these 10 principles we're going to talk about. I'm going to start with a general introduction. And when you read his book, it's one of my favorite passages in the whole of literature. At the beginning of the book, he tries to explain how he did this, how he put these in words, these vibrations that he received. And those of you who come from a background that knows about yoga will know that in yoga, this is called Shruti, direct vibrations from the source. And it's talked about as a very special thing, that people who receive these are receiving the wisdom of the universe from the universal consciousness. So this is the introduction to his book on the 10 Maxims. In this book, I have endeavored to put up in words those spiritual secrets which have up till now come down from heart to heart. So in most traditions, these things can't be put into words. So a teacher transmits them just the same way as a mother transmits to her children. Everything from heart to heart. And why we say that as a parent, it's more important to do than to say, because you know that your children are going to copy you. They're not going to listen to you. So it's the same principle. He goes on to say, but since they relate to direct perception, which depends upon the study of nature and can be revealed by means of vibrations, it is not only difficult, but almost impossible to express them adequately in words. This next paragraph, these 2 sentences are critical here, because he doesn't explain why he says this here, but when you go through these principles, you realize they're all about love. All these 10 principles of heartful living are showing us, they are the guideposts, if you like, to how we can become more loving, how we can live with love in our lives at every moment, and how we can share that love with everybody around us and far away. So he says, true love cannot be expressed by words. This is the very reality which is inexplicable in any way. So what we're going to try and do in this series is we're going to try and get behind the words and feel the love that is flowing in each of these principles. And then he goes on in his very humble way to say, in this respect, I may therefore say that it is proper for the readers to try to reach up to the real spirit, ignoring the defects of expression and language, and be profited and help others to be profited by it. And this is really critical, because there will be words here that you may have some resistance to. You may not feel comfortable with those words because of your own background. I mean, I've tried to keep it really simple, and he also doesn't sort of impose upon us, but when we talk about divine, or when we talk about words like repentance or piety, you may have your own background in these from your own culture, from your own religious or rebellion against religious attitude. Try to remove all that. What he's saying is, don't let these words get in your way, because otherwise it's you who don't get the benefit. Try to feel the vibration behind them. And we'll stop every now and then over the next few weeks to say, you know, are you getting caught up in the words? Let it go. Because if you can do this, you'll find that most of your resistance to your own growth and own evolution will pass. So, before we go into these 10 principles, I want to share with you the way we look at them. And this is very much like Daji's book, Designing Destiny, in a way. And the concept was taken from that. So how do you change yourself? How do you work on yourself to become more loving, to become happier, to become more joyful, to become more comfortable in your own skin? So it starts from within. It doesn't start from the outside, although, you know, really they all go together. It's all part of one thing. But it's easiest to start from within. And that is with inner practice. So can everybody hear me okay? Somebody's written in the chat that my voice is breaking. Are you all okay?
It's okay, sister. Yes.
Yeah, great. Okay, good. So where we start is with inner practice, because when we form the foundation, then it's much easier to start to change behaviors, to start to change the way we improve ourselves, etc. If you try and change your behavior without changing the inside, it's a lot of hard work. And in fact, this is one of the revolutions that Babaji brought about in yoga in this modern era, because people were trying in the ancient times with Ashtanga yoga to, first of all, work on their characters through yama and niyama, to work on their physical being through asanas and pranayama, and leaving the higher practices till later. And of course, trying to work on your character without changing your mind, I think, is near to impossible. It will be artificial. It won't be real change. So what Babaji did was he said, start with practice. So these 10 principles start with practice. And then we move into what we call essential values, the values that we want to live in our life, that emerge out of this practice. And then from these values, changing our behavior from that inner state of being to the outer state of action and doing in the world. And then from there, we move to becoming a role model to others through leadership. And finally, to the process of continuous improvement that keeps us moving forward, keeps us evolving, keeps us transforming. So this is one sequence that we have through these 10 principles. The other sequence, which I didn't put in a visual, is time throughout the day. These 10 principles start in the morning and end at bedtime. And they go throughout the day in terms of how we live our lives. So there's a lot of flow in these heartful principles of living. The flow of being in tune with natural cycles and rhythms, which is actually one of the principles themselves. So at this stage, any questions? Is there anything that anyone wants to share or ask? Okay. Stop me at any time. Just put your hand up or write something in the chat, and our host Shubhangi will interrupt me and we'll stop on the spot. I think it's better than waiting till the end. Okay, so let's look at what they are, these 10 principles of heartful living. So as in the last diagram, we start with practice. And this is contemplative practice. So, but this could just as easily apply to any other practice you're doing. Same universal principles. So number one is all about creating a daily routine in your practice. The time when you do your practice, the space where you do it, the posture with which you do it, and the purity with which you do it as well. We'll go into these in detail one at a time throughout the next few weeks in sequence. But for now, what we're doing is we're getting an overview of what they are and how they fit together. So this idea of daily routine is critical. It's the same with everything you do. If you go to bed at the same time and wake, you have a much more balanced life. If you eat at the same time every day, your digestion is ready to receive food at that time. And you all know what happens, like I am in at the moment, when you have jet lag after traveling between time zones and your whole system is out of whack because you're eating at very, very different times. So time matters. And we all know the experiments of Pavlov on his dogs and cats about creating a routine in our lives. As biological creatures, we're exactly the same. The minute we have a routine, what Babaji called automatism in our practice of anything, can be what you do at work, but it's equally applicable to meditation practices. It makes it so much easier to do. Space, we create a space in which we do these practices, which is separate from the space we watch television or eat or whatever, because it allows us to, again, have an automatism in what we're doing, to create an atmosphere around us. You all know the different atmosphere of going into a hospital or a children's kindergarten or a cemetery. Spaces have vibrations. And the more you meditate in the same space, the easier it is to meditate, the deeper and the purer the atmosphere in which you're sitting. Posture is important because we need flow when we're meditating. And we need to be stable and comfortable. So we'll talk about that. And then purity of both physical and mental is important, because if you start a contemplative practice with a lot of agitation, for example, it's so much more difficult. If you started with where your body is not pure, where you've been out working in the garden and you're covered in mud, etc., it's also not as good. But the mental purity is especially important. So this is the first of the 10 principles. Second one is that before meditating or before doing any contemplative practice, and also before sleeping at night, to fill yourself up with love. And this is a prayerful practice that involves, it's very, very scientific. In fact, all these principles are very scientific. Prayerfully filling your heart with love is, first of all, creating a vacuum, removing all the vibrations that are not loving so that you can fill it. And this is a very simple practice, which we'll talk about, which will transform your life. Because what are you doing? You're removing the lower level of vibrations created by our human activities here and filling them with the highest. And when you do this before you meditate, of course, the effect is going to be very, very different. If you do it before any activity, imagine if all people in the world filled their hearts with love before they did everything. How do you think it would transform the world? Any ideas? You can write it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and say it if you want to.
Yeah, just raise your hand and then I will mute them.
Yeah, somebody's written in the chat. Would be a better place, so much unity. Yes, I mean, how much more joyful would it be? Yeah, So this is a simple, again, a simple principle. Gaurav has raised his hand.
Yes, Gaurav brother, now you can speak. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Thanks, sister, for allowing me. First of all, very good morning as per Indian Standard Time. So basically, if all these things are there, if world is going to having a love in their hearts, so it will be an amazing place. Like I read newspaper and I seen there's a lot of trouble in the world, lot of crime happenings there, especially in India. So I think it will be amazing place when everyone is treating each other with love and respect. So it comes from the practice, I believe. There is no other way. Reading books and everything is no other way.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gaurav. Okay, and somebody's also said spread love and harmony. It's not, it's something that you might have to start doing as a practice. These things, nobody's saying that we have to be perfect at all these. Babaji didn't give them to us as, do's like this, you must do this, and you're terrible if you don't. Not at all. These are guidelines. Maxims are guidelines to work towards. But the more you remember this and the more you do it during the day, especially before your contemplative practice and before bedtime, imagine sleeping with your heart filled with love before you go to sleep. I mean, it's such a beautiful concept, yes? Whether you're spiritual or not doesn't matter. It is a beautiful concept. So third one, fix your goal and don't rest till it is attained. So for those people who are doing the heartfulness practices, that goal is complete oneness with God. For others, it may be some other particular goal, and you can apply this also to any other goal you have in life. It's a focus, it's creating an awareness and intention of where you're heading, where you want to be. Because without that intention, it becomes difficult. It's very easy to be off in different directions, be pulled. And so in the heartfulness practices, we repeat this goal to ourselves twice a day, once in the morning, once before going to bed, so that we remind ourselves in a very, very practical way that we have this goal and we want to keep moving towards it. It doesn't mean we're always going forward. We may sometimes go backwards. We may sometimes be more intensely involved in it than others. But that simple reminder creates a habit that we know that we're moving towards it. So all these principles create habits. And so you all, probably many of you have read the book Atomic Habits and the other book, 7 Effective Habits of Highly Successful People by Stephen Covey. The whole of life rests on these principles, not just a meditative practice. So these are the 3 essential principles for doing a practice, whatever that practice is. It could be namas, it could be Christian prayers, it could be Zen Buddhism, it could be Hatha Yoga, it could be anything. But these we apply very much to our heartfulness practices in order to create the best possible environment and foundation for those practices to help us move forward. Any questions before we move on to the next set? Okay. So the next thing after practice is what comes out of this, which is essential values.
So we have one question by Gaurav brother.
Okay.
Yes, brother, please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Sister, my question is very simple. It is like how we can create love in our hearts. I mean, while we are
Okay.
offering prayer at night, how that love can be there in our heart.
This we're going to share in principle number 2 when we go into it in detail. That is the whole of what the principle is about.
Okay, okay.
And it's a very scientific concept which Babaji has given of creating a vacuum first. And we'll talk about that in detail. It's a very good question because it's the essence of everything. I mean, it's the
Yes,
crux of the whole practice, but we will go into it in detail, just not today.
surely, surely.
Okay. Okay, so these essential values, and again, like creating love in your heart, it's not that these are easy to do. They are guidelines for working on yourself. So, principle number 4, simplify your life so as to be identical with nature. Now, this is, the principle that Babaji's teacher, his guru, Lalaji, said was if there was only one thing that you follow as a principle for life, this is it, number 4. And so it encapsulates the whole of spirituality, if you like. It's an incredible principle. It's why the world is suffering so much at the moment. It's why we have climate change. It's why we have oceans filled with plastics. It's why we have air pollution beyond belief in Delhi. This is the reason that we're not following this principle. So whether you do it for spiritual reasons or not, this is so, so critical. And one of the other teachers in Heartfulness used to say that there is a yogic principle that whatever you are using now as material resources, that a yogi will try and live with 1/5 of those. So whether it's food or money or material possessions or whatever it is, that to simplify your life, you need to be reducing your reliance or your desire for things and resources. So that's one aspect of this. And, if we were all doing this again, if all human beings were simplifying, climate change would not exist, for example. We have come to a state of living where we're so dependent on the material needs of the outside world. Whereas yoga says the opposite. So it says, while you're dependent on this, you will have suffering. You will not have heartful, joyful living because your expectations are so high. So what does he mean by to be identical with nature? Does he mean that we all have to get rid of our houses and our cars and go and live in the forest? No, not at all. He's talking about nature in a very different sense. A broader sense, I should say. He's talking about nature as Prakriti, the state of our inner being and outer being. So becoming identical with the principles of nature, and we'll talk about those in more detail as well. The principle of giving, which is very, very universal within nature. I mean, as human beings, we've gone the other way. We've gone to taking and imposing. But in nature, when you look, you see a lot of giving, you see a lot of accepting, a lot of basic being in tune with the flow, the natural rhythms, the natural currents of the universe. And this is a critical thing to start to work towards if humanity is going to continue to exist. Without it, if we continue the way we've been going, we will go extinct, because when you look at nature historically, you find that any species that destroys its environment has 2 options. Either it's got to mutate and change, or it goes extinct. So it's not surprising that Lalaji told Babaji this is the essential, really, really essential principle to start to work on. And I find it really useful to self-evaluate on this from time to time and set some goals with it. But we'll talk about that in a later session. Principle number 5, always be truthful. Accept difficulties as coming from God for your good and be thankful. 2 principles here that are very much related. The first one is truthfulness. To just be yourself, be authentic is another word that I think may be more easily acceptable for everybody. So to be authentic, to really be who you are. And this in itself is such a challenge, because we have layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of ourselves that are coverings that we've learned to live in the world. We've learned from childhood so that we're acceptable, that we maybe please others, or we set as patterns in our behavior. How many of us truly know who we are underneath all that? It's an exercise in itself to remove these layers and coverings of who we are to get to the essence of ourselves. And given that we've all experienced some sort of trauma in this life, we have coverings that allow us to exist in the world peacefully. And so to remove them is not such an easy matter. And of course, as we're removing the layer upon layer upon layer, and we come to an authentic state of being, we have to face difficulties with an honesty, with an authenticity that we often hide from. We cover it with many sorts of distraction, whether that distraction is television, internet, reading books, watching movies, taking drugs or alcohol, food, sugar. So many different ways we distract from the feelings inside, the truthfulness inside. And when difficulties happen to us and we have to face them, often we just don't want to accept. We start to rebel and judge and get revengeful, doing all sorts of things. Babaji doesn't say go searching for difficulties. He says when they happen to you naturally, which they will to everybody, we accept them as coming from God because they are for our good. They are releasing something, and we be thankful for that. It's a very tricky one, and we'll talk about how to do that in a later session, because nobody likes difficulties, nobody likes miseries, but unless we can develop this attitude, we stay stuck in them. This is the principle that allows us to let them go and move past them and remain joyous and remain happy. It's, again, a very critical principle to learn to do, difficult as it may be. And again, we'll talk about how. Any questions on those two before we move forward? You probably all know more about them than I do. So it's, it's like talking to the converted. But still, if we can dive into these in depth. This session is just to remind us all about them, and then we'll go into them in depth. No questions at this stage? Okay. So then from having these, hand up. Yes, sir.
Yes. Please unmute Mukund, brother. Please unmute yourself, Mukund, brother. Yes.
Good morning, everybody. My question is, my sister told about being authentic, being truthful. That is the 5th principle. To make it lighter, sister, can you give more examples? Is it more than just speaking the truth, not to tell a lie or not to steal, not to be dishonest? Is it anything more than that? Can you give some few more examples?
It's a very good question, and you're absolutely correct. Being truthful is not just about speaking the truth. Being truthful is more about showing yourself in your true colors. It's about really being authentic in the sense that you don't feel one thing and do another. I mean, sometimes you cannot be truthful. You would hurt another person. And the principle of not hurting is higher than being truthful. You would be silent rather than saying something. But, you know, it's a very general principle, which again, we'll talk about when we go into detail with this. I think you've hit the nail on the head when you've said that it's more than not telling the truth and being dishonest, etc. So yes, absolutely correct. There's also a question in the chat, which I think is important, which is, in life, there are people, relationships, and situations are not in tune with nature. But they're also where we have to accept. How do we know where to draw the line? Okay. So these principles, these guidelines are not about what other people are doing. They're what we are doing. So other people may not be in tune with nature. That's not the point. The point is, what is my response to that? Am I being as much as possible identical with nature? It's not about other people. And in situations, again, I can't control the outside. I can only control myself. And these principles are about that. If that makes sense. Okay. Anyone else?
We had one more raised hand by Anand Kumar, brother.
Sure.
Yeah, so, brother, you can unmute yourself and you can speak. Okay, so you can continue, sister. It's okay.
Okay. So then we move to behavior, how this then expresses in the outside world, because it's not enough to do your practice. It's not enough to have essential values. If they don't translate into behavior, there's no point. There's no point in meditating every day and still having prejudice. There's no point in meditating every day and still getting angry when somebody hurts you. I'm not saying we have to be perfect in this, but we have to be aware and working towards these things, because the inner change is not enough. And this is where many of us fall down. We struggle with this so much, the behavioral aspect, how we go out and live in the world. And it means that the inner and the outer are not connected when this happens. We're not conscious of what our patterns are. They're still residing in our unconscious. And as we all know from science, our unconscious is directing our behavior 95% of the time, not our conscious mind. Our thoughts are coming 95% of the time from the unconscious, from our subconscious minds. So until we actually bring things into the light, we will not change our behavior. And that is the frustration for many of us, many of the time, that we know all this. We read these principles, we understand them intellectually, but can we live them? The intellectual understanding is a start, but without being able to live them, our meditative practice is not having the effect it should have. It's just the beginning. So this is critical. This next step, behavior, how we live out what is changing inside, is the connection we have to make. And that's really what these principles are trying to say. Practice, have these values, now go live it. So we start with number 6. Know
Sister,
everyone as yours. Sorry.
sorry, Sister Anand Kumar, brother, wants to ask question before. Now
Sure.
you can unmute. And yes.
Yeah, hi, good morning, sister and brothers. And sister, my question is for like the fifth point where we are asking about, like, not asking, but accepting the difficulties, whatever that comes with wholehearted. So, if we have some financial situation due to uh, as due to the problem in the economy and other things, okay. So my question is, do we have to sit and wait for to it will be for its betterment? Once it will be better, then we have to start, or like as you said, we should accept it as a from God, but or we need to do our efforts to become
Okay,
better.
sure, I've
Yeah,
got the question.
this is
So these are not incompatible things. The first step is acceptance. Accepting, creating a neutral position that we don't have to be miserable about this. We don't have to be resentful about this. We've accepted that this is a difficulty. It's come from God for my good, and I'm thankful for it. It doesn't mean I don't have to go and do something about it. That's a different part. That comes afterwards. So don't see these two things as opposite. It's the attitude that changes with this principle. You accept that this is the reality instead of fighting it. You don't whinge about it. I mean, what does whinging do? It puts all your energies into negativity, all your energies into not solving, but just being miserable about the situation. So first we accept, okay, this is the way it is. It's come from God. I'm thankful to be in this position. It may be so I learn to move forward with the challenge and find another solution. But these two things are not separate, okay?
yeah. Thank you, sister. Yeah,
Yeah.
it helps.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's carry on so we done in time, because I'm aware that we only have 15 minutes left.
Sister, sorry, we have one more question.
Can we hold it to the end now, Shubhangi? I'm just aware that of time. We want to get through the 10, and then, so anyone who has a question, please hold it now and we'll try and get to it at the end. If not, we'll carry it over to the next session. So in this behavior, what does Babaji say? First thing is, know everyone, and I would add here every being, as yours, and treat them as yours. What does this mean? It means that we do not see the difference. The differences are there in people, in other beings, but we are seeing the common unity, the common thread of divinity in everyone. And we have practices for all these things in Heartfulness, as you know, and we'll go into those in detail. But this principle that everyone is family, everyone is ours, is critical to changing humanity and living in the world in a higher way. Next one. And these are all, of course, related. Don't be revengeful for wrongs done by others. Instead, be accepting with gratitude. And when we say revengeful, we don't just mean, going out and stabbing the person or doing some really hateful act of revenge. It could be as simple as just ignoring them or excluding them from your group, or not speaking to them in a nice way. It can be very subtle. And in fact, the more subtle, the more potent it is. When somebody's really outwardly very revengeful, everything's outward and it doesn't have such an impact as when you are very, very deeply exclusive of a person. That's more painful. And that's, unfortunately, we think that revenge is just yelling at a person or whatever, or hurting them. Not at all. We can be revengeful in many other ways, just by excluding, by turning our backs on somebody, by just in our thoughts not loving and including them in situations. Because again, this is like maxim 5. This is one of those miseries when somebody else hurts us or does something to us that we need to accept because it's coming for our benefit. Not only accept, but cheerfully accept with gratitude as something for our benefit. And again, this is one that many, many people struggle with because they say, how can you not be hurt? It's okay, be hurt. It's all right to feel those things, but work through it. Do you hold on to it? Do you let it fester and simmer inside you? Or are you able to view and evaluate your feelings and say, okay, I'm really feeling hurt by this. Let me process it. Let me get to a state of acceptance, of cheerful acceptance that this is really for my good and I can be grateful for it. Not an easy task, and we'll talk about that and how to do it in the session on Principle 7. Number 8, be happy to eat in divine awareness, in divine thought, but it doesn't have to be thinking, conscious thinking. You know, this awareness that everything I'm receiving is from the divine, that as I'm eating it, it's bringing divinity into my system. It's prasad, if you like, the food that I'm eating. Second part, whatever you get, without needing to have a particular dish for lunch or for dinner, without getting upset if somebody gives you food that's not your most favorite food, or that's maybe a little too spicy or whatever. I mean, whatever you get, Babaji's saying. This, again, this feeling of acceptance that what the universe is giving me is wonderful and is what I need. And then, oh, sorry, I forgot the most important thing. Be happy. You know, he starts this with, be happy. You know, this is such an incredible concept that we're linking happiness with eating, irrespective of what I'm eating, what I'm getting, and with due regard to honest and pure earnings. He actually uses the word pious, but I know a lot of people either don't understand or have a reaction to this word. So instead, we've put pure there. But this concept of the resources with which you buy food, where have they come from? Where has the money come from? Has it come from illegal, crooked dealings or something with which I've been dishonest in order to get my money? It won't have any good effect on your system if you eat food bought with that, unless it's purified first. So this maxim, number 8, is all about the resources that we have, the food we eat, the money we earn. Where have they come from, and what are we doing to purify? In a state of happiness. There's a lot of concepts there to bring together. But this concept of happiness in how we do this is really, really vital and critical. Any questions on this one before we move to the last two? Okay, I'll come to the questions that are in the Q&A when we finish. Let's look in the chat. Okay. So let's carry on to the last two principles. So with behavior, this leads us to something we would call in the modern world leadership. To become a role model for others, to be able to evoke in others something that matters, to share, to radiate out something, radiate a fragrance that others pick up on and is for their benefit, for their betterment. So principle 9 is to mold your behavior and way of living to such a high order that you awaken the feeling of love and piety in others. So you inspire people. You inspire love in people. This is Babaji's idea of being a role model. This is the critical thing. And the way he says to do it, we'll go into in detail, but a lot of it is about accepting the diversity in others, the fact that everybody's not the same as us, in not judging, in fulfilling all the previous maxims, the previous principles, so that we basically create such a unconditional love, feeling of unconditional love. One of the people on this call, Christine Prisland, told me many times that when she first met Babaji in his house in Shahjahanpur, the feeling that was evoked in her was one that he completely loved her unconditionally. That feeling is there when we're able to create a behavior in ourselves that this is what we evoke in others. They feel totally comfortable with us, totally at home with us, totally loved by us, and able to love others. I mean, it's an incredible concept. And this is something that should be probably in the leadership books and halls of, all the universities worldwide, if we really want to create a society where everybody is included and there's peace and love. And then the final and most evolutionary one of these principles is principle number 10. So this is done at bedtime because it's the time when we're winding down, our minds are open, our subconscious is open, and we can really, in a very peaceful way, be able to look at our behaviors, our thoughts, and see how we can change. So what does he say? He says to introspect daily at bedtime, to repent for any wrongs done. And the word repent is important here. If we say to say sorry for, then we're feeling really bad. And this is not about guilt. It's the opposite. Repent is the opposite of guilt. It's using this opportunity to say, okay, I want to improve myself. This is for my betterment. There's no guilt, there's no browbeating, there's nothing involved in this that is of a pulling down negative nature. It's instead generally with heartfelt, loving feelings of repentance to just say, I want to change. I want to repent for any wrongs done, and prayerfully, again, because in the heart, in that prayerful condition, everything's open. I'm willing then to change. The ego cannot manifest in the heart in that way. So I'm prayerfully resolving not to allow repetition. So these concepts and every word in them matter. If you remove the word prayerfully, you don't get into the right state. If you change repentance to feeling sorry for, again, you get into the wrong understanding. So these are the 10 principles. These are what we'll be working with over the next few weeks and going into in detail about how to create these in your life, how to get to a state where we're able to work towards these without feeling the deficit as something negative, but as something that we're moving towards in an evolutionary way. So that's all from me. I think we've got time for 1 or 2 last questions before we finish up.
Yes, sister. So we had one question in the question answer box.
Will we
So
be able to accept people who keep doing the wrong things forever? Why not? What would stop you? You may not like their actions, but that's not, the action is different from the person. Do we do the same things over and over again? The person who's asking the question, Lakshmi, are there any mistakes you make that you repeat? If you're able to accept this in other people, you will learn a lot about love, because love is not just for everybody who does the right thing. Otherwise, it would be easy. Otherwise, we wouldn't need this. There's another question in the Q&A box also. So acceptance is internal or external? The condition or response I create because of various factors. The response is our choice to work on it. And acceptance is on whatever comes our way. How is acceptance related to decision-making or choices in life? This is a very, very big topic, something we don't have time for now. It will come, especially when we talk about maxims 5 and 7 during the sessions. So if you can hold this one and ask it on principle number 5, it will be great. I think we're done. Veronique,
Thank
Shivangi,
you.
anything else?
Yes, thank you, Elizabeth. Lot of questions already, and definitely that's where we want to go in the next sessions, next weeks. You are invited to start diving into each one of these principles, hold your questions. Maybe you already will want to reflect during next week. I invite you to write your questions as they come during the next days on your diary, and then come up with the next session so that they can be answered. They're very practical ways to look at these principles that will help you in daily life in the way that they have helped already a lot of people. So thank you, Elizabeth, for opening the box. And we welcome you all next Friday at the same time with in the same company. And please join on Zoom. You can watch the recording on the platform if you want sorry, if you want to ask questions and you are not present on Zoom, please feel free to write it in the community of the Yoga for Unity website. We will take them up live and answer your questions. So feel very free. Don't feel that if you're not in the right time zone, you're missing something. You will not. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elizabeth. Have a very good week and see you next Friday morning, 7 a.m. Indian Standard Time.
Okay. Bye, everyone.